Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's video. This week's going to be a little bit different. Essentially, I'm going to build out a game live with you on, well, it's not live, but normally I'd pre-record something, or I would sort of pre-build a project and then go back through it, explaining everything about it. This time I'm actually going to just build something as I record it, which might make me have more mistakes in the video, but we'll see how it goes. What we're going to build is a sort of a shooter deathmatch type thing, and then my aim is to put in some AI, some bots, which will obviously serve as the other characters, because if you just build a game you can't make it multiplayer and get everybody in. If you've got loads of mates willing to do that, then by all means do that, but we're going to build an AI system. So, my idea is that I will record this for about 15-20 minutes, see how it goes, hit stop recording then, and then I might break this up into a couple of videos. Depends how far I go, really. So, right, to start with, I'm going to do a first-person template. This is going to be a third-person shooter, but we're going to use the first-person template just because it comes with a gun and a projectile and stuff, and it's a couple less things to make. So I'm just going to call this I can't start with 1A Deathmatch. I'm putting A just so it's at the top of my list, because I'll probably delete this project after this tutorial. So A Deathmatch right at the beginning there. That's going to load up. Now, in the meantime, while that's starting up, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down in my library, and I'm just going to look at what I can add. So I'm going to be doing a third-person game. So I'm probably going to get the, well, that was quicker than I expected. I'm probably going to take the animation starter pack. So I'm going to add that to my deathmatch. So that's the animation starter pack. That is what I'll use for the third-person template. Sorry, the character. And then I also want some weapons, so I believe I've got there we go, an FPS assault pack, and that has an AK-47 in it, which that's what I'm feeling like. Yep, that's what I'm going to go for. Add that to my deathmatch too. And for now, I think that's all I'm going to need up front, just to get the sort of basics down. So let's open up the project, and as you're probably all familiar with, this is the FPS template. I know, as always, that audio for the weapon firing is always well too loud, so I'm going to go back to the contents, go to FPS, oh sorry, first person, go to audio, and I'm just going to open up that audio template, and I'm just going to turn the volume to 0.3. just so it's not as loud. There we go, that's much better. Go back to the contents folder. I'm just going to click on this little sort of like show sources panel, just so I get this hierarchy here. Now, typically what I like to do, I'm just going to go into the BP folder, get rid of the overview, don't need that. I would highlight the maps and blueprints, drag that into first person, just to sort of empty some of these folders. I can get rid of that BP folder now because I've moved it into here. I'm also going to drag the animation starter pack into animations and move that. Once that's done, that's gone. Now I would move the FPS into like meshes or just into here, but this is surprisingly larger than it looks like, and it takes more time to move than it's probably worth, and I don't want you to watch me moving a folder. Rather, you'd rather benefit from this video than watching me move stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the sort of first person character that's placed in the world. I'm going to edit it. And then everything seems to be opening on my other screen, so I'm going to go to the edit and then editor preferences. And I'm going to set the asset editor open location to main window, and what that's going to do is if I open something new now, like I don't know, let's open up the HUD. It should always go here, so it's not having to. So there's a little tip up front. Get rid of the message log for now, I don't need that. And I'm going to go back to the content. So yeah, so we've just opened up the blueprint for the first person character. But we don't actually want it placed in the world. We're going to let the game use the player start here, which always starts underneath the world, which is annoying. So yeah, so let's delete the first person character. So then now when we press play, we should spawn here rather than here. Yep, so we've spawned at this side of the text rather than the other side. So now we want to mess this up, so it's not a first person. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our first person folder, and we're going to go to animations, and we're going to find the animation starter pack. We're going to scroll down to the bottom of the animation starter pack, and there's a character here, UE4 ASP character. We're going to use that as our main character. So what we're going to do is we're just going to double click on that. And this is the why is that on a warning already? What's that? Oh, crouch isn't an event. Oh, we can fix that in just a minute. So yeah, we're going to use this third person character as our character, but we're going to need to sort of like steal some bits and pieces from here. Mainly the spawn projectile, we're going to need that, but first what we're going to do is in the UE4 ASP character, let's just click on the mesh, and we're going to add a component to the mesh. We're going to add a skeletal mesh, and we're going to call this weapon. And underneath our weapon, we're going to select a skeletal mesh from the right hand side, and we're going to scroll down, and I'm going to look for the RU74, which I think is the AK-47 looking one. Is that right? Well, it would be if the texture had loaded, but I'm assuming that's compiling. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Yep. So with that being loaded in, I'm actually going to click on parent socket. Because this weapon is a child of the mesh, we can parent it to his hand. So click on this magnifying glass, and if we scroll down, we can select hand R, and then because I changed the position, it's floating up here. We can just reset this, and then that'll be down here. I'm going to hold R on the keyboard. No, I'm not, because it won't let me for some reason. There we go. Hold, sorry, not R, E, and then I'm going to rotate on the Z by 90 degrees. That's going to point it forward. I'm going to press W and get the move tool. I'm going to get up close. Now my camera is a little bit quick there, so if whilst you're holding the right mouse button down to fly around, if you scroll down with your mouse wheel, you'll slow the camera down. And that allows me to get in here nice and close. I'm going to pull this forward a little bit. I'm going to move it over a little bit. Now at the moment it is jumping far too much, so here I'm going to actually adjust this to, I'm going to adjust the X to -5. That's not what I want, so I'm going to go -10 again. I'm going to use the Y, -5, that's too much, -7, nope, +5, no, there we go. So +5's put it, you know, it's not perfect, but I think when you're running around, you're not really going to pay much attention to it, and you know, it looks more or less right anyway. So X -10 and Y +5, and then the rotation is 90 on the Z. That looks fine to me. What else do we need to do? Okay, so let's sort out this this warning. So the input action event unknown action crouch. So that's because this character's animation has a crouch animation, but because we've not set up a key function for that, it won't do it. So I'll go back to the map. I don't think you need to go back to the map, but go to edit, go to project settings. on the left hand side under engine, we're going to go to input, we're going to go to action mappings, and here we've got jump, fire and reset. We want to press a plus, and we want this one to be crouch with a capital C at the beginning. And this key for me is going to be keyboard, and it's going to be left control. So left control for my crouch. So now if we go back to our UE4 ASP character and press compile, this should be green because we've now put the action mapping of crouch. So I think we can close that for now. Also, okay, so we've made this character, but our game's still being told to use the first person. So I'm just going to go to blueprints. I'm going to click on this little down arrow. Underneath the world override, you've got game mode, first person game mode. Now you could create a new one and set it up with all the stuff you want to. I'm going to be real lazy here, and I'm just going to edit the first person game mode. Now I know the naming's wrong, but I'm not too bothered about that. And the default pawn class is currently set to first person. We want to change that to our UE4 ASP character. Hit compile, press save if you like. Go back to our character, and I'm just going to hit play, and there we go. I can see that we've got our character, and if I press the left control button, I can see the crouch animations working. That's nice, and if I hit space, we've got a jump. So now we've got a character that's got a gun. That's brilliant. Now, one thing I noticed there is obviously my camera is right behind my guy, which for an FPS isn't really the best. Typically FPSs will kind of looking over the shoulder of your character. So I'm going to move the camera over, and I'm also going to align the crosshair to be with the projectile, which we also need to set up. So to start with, we've got this camera here, and it's right behind our guy, and I'd rather it be sort of like here, looking over his shoulder. So I'm just going to select this, and now I've made a few of these third person sort of setups. So what I typically like to do is I like to move it over to about 70, and then I move it up till it's at 70 as well. Now over here it says 70, but actually in your units over in your location it'll say 40 for the height, and that's just because of where the anchor of this is sat. It's sort of waist height. But anyway, if we hit compile now and press play, you can see that we're sat over the shoulder of the character, which is, you know, already looking a lot more FPS-y, and it's a lot better. We just need to sort of get a projectile firing, and then we need to align that crosser, and then I think I'll do a sort of like a health bar and an ammo counter. And then looking at the time that we're on so far, that might be just enough for this video. But let's crack on. So let's set up the projectile. Now the reason that we opened up the blueprint for the first person character earlier on is because we're actually going to steal this this projectile blueprint now. So that's why we created this template as a first person, because they've already made the code for firing, so why bother making it twice when we can just steal it. So just highlight all of the spawn projectile, hit Control and C on your keyboard to copy it. Alternatively, I think you can press edit, or not, I guess. Anyway, yeah, just press Control C on your keyboard and copy that. Go to UE4 ASP character again, and then just in some blank space, let's just hit paste. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag this down a little bit so it's nicer looking. Now I'm just going to edit out all the stuff that I don't need. So the input touch controller, I'm never going to have this on touch, so I'm going to get rid of that, get rid of that branch. This play montage, now the reason this exists is because if I go to the viewport, whoa, where have I gone? See, this is what I mean, the camera moves far too quick by default. You can also change the camera speed up here, but I like using the scroll wheel. So the montage, just let me explain the montage quickly. The reason that that's in the blueprint is because every time you fire, you can see this fire animation. Every time you fire with the FPS character, this fire animation plays. And that's essentially what this is doing. It's saying every time you fire, just change the animation to this fire animation and then carry on doing what you're doing. Now our third person character has a different animation, so you know we can either change this. To be honest, I've never changed it, but I guess we could do. Let's just delete this mesh 2p because that doesn't exist for this blueprint, because that was this mesh 2p, and let's just drag our character's mesh here. So now it's going to look at this mesh for an animation called fire first person fire. Obviously our third person character doesn't have this animation, so we could have a look for a fire animation. So I don't think this is going to work because we're going to need to blend an animation of him lifting the gun up and then firing, but I guess we could have a look. I'm looking for fire hip. That might be it. Wait for this to load. You know what? That might work actually. The way that it's built. So back to the UE4 ASP character. I'm gonna select from the drop down and I'm gonna look for hip fire again. Oh, I see. This is a montage. Oh, I get it. Right. So this might not work actually. Let's try and make this into a montage. I've not actually done this. So animation montage. Let's create it. Let's go into it. I mean, in theory, that's doing what I want it to do. So let's go back. Let's select montage and let's look for this hip fire. Fire rifle hit montage. If we compile, this is going to fail actually because this stuff hasn't been set up. Let's just do that. So this is going to fail. What else don't we need? So this first person character, obviously we don't have a first person character anymore, but we have our player character. So camera. So let's drag that in here. So that's, if we press compile, that should work now. A sphere. Now, if we look at what the sphere was on the first person, the sphere was just sort of like a placeholder to signify where the end of the barrel was, or the muzzle of the gun. Now, luckily for us, if we look at our weapon and then click on this magnifying glass and double click on it, this will take us to the weapon itself. If we have a look at the tip of the gun, hang on, there's actually a muzzle socket. So the end of the gun is actually labelled up as muzzle or muzzle socket. So what I've just done there is I've just double clicked on this muzzle socket, and because it's highlighted I've pressed Ctrl C. I've just copied the name of that. Because what I'm going to do is, instead of saying let's put a sphere here and reference the sphere, I'm just going to say just find the location of this muzzle socket. So we can close the rifle now. Go back to your character, and instead of sphere, let's just drag our weapon reference here, and let's say get socket location, and let's delete that. Just drag that into that, and then where it says socket name, I'm just going to press paste because I copied it. That just says muzzle socket. Depending on the assets you've used, they might have different names. If the asset you use doesn't have a muzzle socket, then essentially what you want to do is you just want to, underneath your weapon, just create a sphere collision and just put it at the end of your barrel. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use that sphere's location as this instead. Pretty much the same as how the original one was. You know, where it's got this sphere, it's just at the end of the barrel. Anyway, so yeah, if you're using the same packs as me, muzzle socket. Then they use a gun offset. Now, for this one, we can just right click on this blank bit of this node, and it'll say create the variable gun offset, which is pretty good. Press compile. And then the gun offset default values just need to be copied over. So we can go back to that first person, select the gun offset, right click on the name and press copy, and it will copy all the values for you. Let's come back over here and we can paste, and that's sorted. The other thing that's not going to work is we don't have motion controllers, so let's just delete that altogether and just link that back up. And let's just delete these nodes, get rid of that, and then get rid of all this. So, okay, we're making the transform straight into where the projectile should come from. That's fine. And then there's this random node here. What's that? Why is that there? Let's move that. Oh, that was where the input touch was, so we delete that. Right, so we've kind of streamlined that a little bit. If we hit compile now, I'm just going to test it and see if this animation montage works as expected. So here we go, we've got a guy, press fire. Well, our projectiles is working, but the montage hasn't played, so just as I was going to do in the beginning, I'm just going to delete that, to be honest, and just plug that straight into there. And then what I can do is, there's no point having all this space, so let's just move this right over here. And I guess we could condense this down. That doesn't need to take up as much space as it was, does it? And I guess that doesn't need that anymore. I'll tell you what, I'm messing around too much here, so that's fine. I'm just going to tweak this gun offset. So let me just have a look in the world. If I fire, there's a bit of a distance between the barrel and the gun. So on the X, I'm just going to reduce that to 50. That means, let me just get over here and I'll explain what that was doing. Essentially what it was doing, it was taking the end of the barrel and adding 100 units to it. So the bullet was actually starting from here. I've just moved it back to about here. Now the reason it did that in the first place, let me just see if I've not messed that up. When you run forward, if the bullet spawns, there's a chance it can collide with the gun it's just come out of. And that's the reason that they do that. But this character walks a bit slower than the original, so that shouldn't be a problem. Now, the size of that projectile isn't that great for this type of gun, so that's the other thing that I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna minimize the size of that. So a quick way to get to that projectile is underneath your spawn projectile. There's this little magnifying glass. You can click on that, and it'll take you to the one that you'd selected, which is this one. So we don't need to mess with any of this just yet. But if I go to the view, I just want to change the size of this, I guess. So I'm just going to tick this little padlock, which is when I change one of these, it's going to change all of them. I'm going to set that to 0.25, and that should make it smaller. Let me hit play and just make sure that worked. Okay, that looks just as big as it did, to be honest. So I'm going to check the sphere and just, oh, that's 0.1. So if I set that to 0.05 and compile that, let's have a look how that looks. You know what, that'll do for now, I guess. It looks better, but you know, we can mess around with that at some point. Right, so I guess at this point I don't really need this first person character anymore, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Let's adjust the heads up display while we're in this folder. So we're in the first person blueprints folder. We're going to open up this. Now this heads up display is a little bit different to like widgets. This is kind of like a raw deal. It's just like drawn directly onto the viewport itself, the actual screen. So this is a bit weird, but essentially once the HUD is created by the game mode, so that's here, the HUD class is picked right at the beginning, first person HUD. Once this is created, it then draws this cross, which this receives, or so this has an output of the screen size, which is X and Y. And essentially all this does is it takes the X and Y and divides it by 2. So hopefully that should be in the center of the screen. And then because the projectile is slightly it's slightly off center from the center of the screen, they put this because you can see your characters kind of like sort of tilted slightly towards the right, so your character's more rotated this way, so the projectile follows that. So they've offset it by this 20. Now that's not enough now, because we've obviously moved our camera, we've put a different model in there, a different weapon. We need to make some adjustments ourselves. Now again, because I have done this quite a few times with over different projects, I know that the adjustment for Y is actually going to be a +50. So that's roughly the height of where the ball hits 9 times out of 10. Obviously, the further you go, the more wrong that's going to be. But as an average shoot range, you know, most of the time when you're shooting someone, they're not, unless you use sniping them, they're not going to be like well over there, or they're not going to be right in your face, which even still you know, you're probably going to hit them anyway. That's the only downside to sort of static crosshairs like this. And then for the X, this one's actually going to be a negative, so I'm going to do a -int and plug that into there. And this one, if I remember rightly, is going to be 20. Yeah, so if I test that now, let's have a look. There we go, we've got a crosser somewhere around where we want it to be. Now, basically I've just repeated one of my previous tutorials up until this point, so I do apologise for that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to close all of these, because I don't really need them. And I'm going to go back to the first person, and I'm going to create a new folder here called HUD. I'm going to open up the HUD folder, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to user interface, and I'm going to do a widget. I'm going to call this sort of HUD, say I'll do caps HUD and then underscore container. So essentially I'm going to have a main HUD with loads of like individual elements on them. Excuse me. So this one's just going to be blank for now. But what we'll do is we will go to our character. I think might be the best place for this. We'll go for event. One sec, something's not right here. Right click. Event begin. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say create a widget. Now a widget is this sort of container. We've created a user widget, sorry, user interface widget. I'm going to select the HUD container. Now I want a reference to that at some point, so I'm going to drag off this return value, promote this to a variable, and I'm just going to put HUD ref. And then from this reference, I'm then going to do add to viewport, and that's going to add that empty container on my screen, which at the moment won't do anything because it's blank. But in just a sec, we're going to create another one. So now you're going to go to user interface again and do a widget, and we're going to put health bar. Or I'll tell you what, health bar. Open up that. This time I'm going to have this one set to desired on screen. Essentially that just means whatever size I create the elements is going to be the size it's going to be. Whereas the HUD container is just fill screen. Whatever the size of the screen is, I just want you to take up all of it. whereas the health bar is whatever size, whatever I put here. So for example, I'm going to put my progress bar in here. This is the size of my widget. It's this big because it doesn't need to be any other size. Yep, so with that progress bar selected, because we are actually using that, I'm going to go to the size X and change that to 300, and the size Y to 50 is a bit too big. 40, that would do for me. Then I'm also going to grab a text, and I don't think I can do that, so I'm just going to drag that manually and just sort of pop it there. So I'm just scrolling in here, and I'm just going to check. I tell you what, you know, that was pretty darn good for centering. Either way, I'm going to set the size to 300. I'm going to set that anchor to 0, and I'm going to set the text justification to center, and then I'm guaranteed to be in the center of that health bar. I'm going to select the text, and I'm going to, what am I going to bind it to? I'll tell you what, I need to assign this text to whatever health my character's got. But at the moment, my character doesn't have health. So, go to your UE4 ASP character. And over on the left bottom corner, you've got variables. We're going to press add. And we're going to do health. And then mine's defaulted to this red bean, which is a boolean. We're going to click on that, and we're going to change it to a float, because we want our health to be a number. Hit compile, and then over on the right hand side now under defaults, let's just set that to 100. Hit compile. And then back on the health bar, I'm going to go to where it says text on the right, and I'm going to bind, create a new binding. And I'm going to change the name of this binding to update health text. And for this, I'm going to get the player character, which is going to be who I'm playing as. I'm going to use this reference to cast to my UE4 character. Now all my AI that I'm going to make in later are all going to be this UE4 character as well, so this will work for everyone. The reason I say that is because you can get the class of the character and cast to the character class, which will also, it's sort of like a catch-all for all characters in the game, but we don't need to do that. And then as this as my player character, I can now access the health attribute, and that should just plug straight into there, and it will convert it to text for me. So now if I compile, now we've only created the bar, we've not added it to our HUD, so let's just go back to our HUD container, scroll down, and let's go to user created. And this will give you everything you've made. So I've got a health bar. I'm going to drag this in. The anchor's up in the top left, but I don't want it to be. I want it to be in the bottom left. So I'm going to click on anchors. I'm going to hold control and click on this bottom left widget. That's moved my anchor and also moved my text block or my health bar. I'm going to change the position X to, I think, 150, so it's away from the edge. And then for the Y, this is actually going to be a negative 100, and that will pop it just at the bottom of the screen. If I hit compile now and play, you can see my health bar is on the screen and it's got my 100 health. However, the progress bar is empty. So if we now go back to health bar, and one little tip for you is just copy, just copy them three. Get rid of that. Just copy them three. It doesn't matter if you copy all four, that won't paste anywhere. And then what we want to do is we want to go back to designer, select the progress bar, and where it says %, we want to bind that to a binding. And we're going to rename that to update health bar, and then make some space, paste, and then we can just pop that in place there like it was on the other one. Now this time, one thing you should know is that your percent bar goes from 0 to 1. So 1 is like filled and 0 is empty. So our health is 100, so we can't have 100, we can have 1. So if we take our health and then divide it by 100, whoops, essentially when our health's at 100, it'll be 1, and when it's at 0, it'll be, well, 0. So that should work now. So you can plug that straight into there, and hopefully if we press play, our bar should be blue, which we don't want it to be blue, but it works. So let's go back to the designer. We should still have the progress bar selected. If you don't, click on it. Let's, is it under style? Maybe not. Oh, here we go. Under appearance, we've got fill and color. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to select red, and then I'm just going to get rid of the blue value to 0. Make it a bit darker so it looks a bit more bloody. Hit play. That looks nice. I've got a health bar. And then we're going to do something similar for an ammo counter. Let's go back to our sort of main window. We've got health bar. I'm just going to user interface, widget, ammo, count. Open that. Change from fill screen to desired on screen. I'm probably just going to have text at this point. Let's just drag a text into our canvas. Let's bind the text of that. Create a binding. Change this to update ammo count. Our character doesn't have ammo yet, so let's go back to our character, and where we've made our health one, let's go plus and let's go ammo. Hit compile. Let's set our ammo counter to 25, for example. Go back to our ammo count HUD, and we need to do the same thing as earlier. I'm just going to press paste and see what happens. There we go. Luckily I still had that copied. So if you remember, that was the player character reference, cast to our UE4 ASP character, and then we got our health. But we don't want health this time. We want ammo. And so what, we need to link this up. Now what you could do is you could have an ammo amount and then a maximum ammo, and you could say you could get both of them and put, you've got this amount of ammo out of this amount of ammo. But I'm not, for my game I'm just going to have an infinite amount of ammo. So what I'm going to do is, there's this really interesting thing called Append. Now Append is a string function, and it allows you to add bits of text together. So I'm going to get the ammo. Bloody hell. I'm going to get the ammo, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a space, a forward slash, and then another space, and then INF for infinite. And then you'll see what this is going to look like in a minute, and then I'm going to return that to the HUD. So essentially what I've done is I've took my ammo amount and then plugged it into this infinite counter, and you'll see that just returns a string on the screen. But before we do that, let's just add the ammo to our HUD. So go back to your container, get your ammo count, drag it here. Let's fix that anchor. Again, hold control and click on the bottom left. I'm going to go to position 150, so it's the same as my health bar, and then this time for my Y I'm going to go to minus 150 maybe, so it's just above that. Hit compile, press play. Now we can see I've got my 25 ammo, and then when I fire, nothing's happening because I've not actually assigned it to decrease that. But you can see that I've got 25 rounds out of infinity. So once I run out of ammo, I can just reload, which we'll build. Let's just get rid of that trailing 0 for now. So this was a float. Maybe I don't want a float. Yeah, let's change this to integer. And let's hit compile. And then this is just a flat 25 number rather than a 0.0. Let's go in here and let's just drag. Oh, no, let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. Drag that into here. So obviously this has changed from a float to an int, so this just needs to change. Hit compile, press play, and now we've got 25. And I tell you what, really quickly, I hope you're following me at this point. Get rid of the ammo counter. Get rid of this HUD. We don't need that. We don't need the projectile. Yeah, we don't need that. Underneath your character, let's go down to your spawn projectile. And what I'm going to do is, I'll tell you what, we're gonna make it so then it removes the ammo separately. That'll make more sense. If you just want to right click anywhere and do custom event, and let's just go deduct. Oh bloody hell! Deduct ammo. And then what we want to do is drag our ammo. We want to get our ammo. And we want to -1. And then we want to set our ammo. Whoa, not get, set. Then we want to set our ammo. So essentially what we do, every time we want to deduct some ammo, we're getting our current ammo value, taking 1 off it, and then setting that back as our ammo value. And then to run this, when we fire a projectile, we want to deduct ammo. And so if we go now, every time I fire, you can see my ammo's going down, but the problem is there's no limit on it, so it'll keep going. So here, under the spawn projectile, what we can do is we can grab our ammo, get it, and let's say if it's greater than 0, and then drag off your boolean, do a branch, pressed. So if our ammo is greater than 0, is true, we can fire a bullet. If it's not, it won't do anything. From this, what you can do, you can set it to play a sound like click, 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 like your guns run out of ammo. Yep, and I guess we need to make a reload function. So again, we can do a custom event, and we can say reload. Let me scroll in so you can see what I'm writing. Reload. And this can be really, really easy. We can just get our ammo. No, I'll tell you what, even easier. We can just set ammo back to 25. And then to prevent people from just like spamming reload, what we can say is, let's get the reload. If the reload is less than 1, meaning 0, branch. So if the ammo is less than 1, meaning 0, is true, you can do this. But otherwise, if you press reload and you've still got ammo, it won't do anything. So here we're checking, do we have ammo to fire? If we do, keep firing it until we run out. Until we reduce it to 0. Once it's 0, you can't fire anymore. But at that point, you're allowed to reload. So let's press play and let's see what happens. So we've got 25. If I click, we're firing. We'll get, before we get to 0, I'm going to try and reload. I'm going to press R, so nothing happens. But then as soon as I get to 0, I can't shoot anymore, but I can reload. Oh, that's interesting. So the reload hasn't worked though. If the ammo is less than 1, is that less than? Have I done that right? Oh my god. So my bad. I've made this function reload, but I've not actually assigned it to a button press. So over here we can do the R key, and then we can say reload. So what you could do is you can go to your project settings and change that to an input as reload, and that'll be the same. Hit play. Get all the way down to 0. So if I press R now at 1, it shouldn't do anything, but when I get to 0, it allows me to reload. So there we go. We've got a 25 clip. Press R, you got to reload. So you still get unlimited ammo, but that's that. And we're already at 45 minutes, so I'm going to leave it there for now. I am going to post another video on Wednesday, so be sure to subscribe so then you don't miss that. And then hopefully, if I talk a little bit quicker, I might be able to get the rest of this finished in that episode. But if what I've showed you so far has helped, please consider giving me a like. If there's, you know, I'm pretty much set on what I'm going to do in this video, so a comment won't really help for the next video. However, if there's something that you would like me to be more specific on or anything like that in a future video, please consider commenting down below. I really do reply to almost every comment, or at least I try to, and if you are stuck, I will try my hardest to help you. So yeah, if you've got anything on your mind, comment it down below and I'll get back to you. And that's it for this week, I guess. So thanks for watching, and I will see you on Wednesday. Thank you very much.